I think we all have friends like this. They start dating a girl, they start dating a boy. They're like, oh, I'm trying to learn new things. Da, da, da. They're just repeating the stuff that they said to you, and they're like, yeah, they just make me feel this kind of way. And they're like, yeah, they just make me want to be a better person. Oh, y'all, bro, my friends do this all the time. They start dating somebody. La 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 la. I sound like a hater. Let me calm down. But for some reason, for some people, they get a partner and they're like, yeah, I'm just learning these new things. But no, you're not. I told you all these things already. I don't know, man. My friends be like, yeah, she told me this, she told me that. I've literally told you all of that stuff already. Yeah, she makes me want to be thoughtful. Da, da. You're already thoughtful. Maybe she makes you want to be thoughtful to her or him, but you're already thoughtful. I don't get it. Maybe it's because I'm single. I don't know. I think, okay, here's my unpopular opinion or hot take. I think that a lot of times when it comes to relationships, people nuance of course. People overvalue and undervalue their partner. Duh, that's the human experience, right? I think sometimes when you're dating, you end up treating your partner like your spouse, like your husband or your wife. Then because of that, you cross emotional boundaries, and because that, there's gonna be problems with expectations, right? If you end up treating this person like your husband or your spouse without communicating that, without setting proper boundaries, there's gonna be bounds. There's bound to be problems, and I think no matter what in any relationship, there's gonna be problems because we're two different people coming from two different worlds trying to collide to make it match, right? The questions that we ask are, what's your favorite color? This, that. Cool. But we're not asking, how would you fit in my life? How would you fit in my reality? How can I compromise my life to fit in your reality? Then we have these balancing arguments. You come from two different understandings of love. Parents raising two different human beings, just trying to be one, all of that. And because of that, I think dating is very confusing. I'm gonna go back to my little rant about my friends, but man, one of my friends, he just started. They're low key about to be dating. I don't know what the heck they are, but he's like, yeah, he won't stop talking about this girl. Hey, shout out her. I'm not a hater, but I do think there's a role that, okay, I think infatuation and love are needed for a relationship to be successful. You need to want your partner, and you also need to love and respect them, right? But too much infatuation and no love is a no go, right? Duh. I don't know why my friends, when they start dating someone, they're like, yeah, they bring this other side of me. Actually, I think for hot takes again, I think for a lot of men, they see romantic relationships as a place where they can open up the most. Like, whenever you're romantically attracted to somebody, that's where you open up your heart. But they don't do that in friendships. So whenever they have a romantic partner, they open up their heart so much and whatnot. And it's like, yeah, she da 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 da. She makes me feel this. She makes me feel that. She brings this new part of me. But I do think, maybe I'm wrong. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. I think that friendships are one of the highest relationships you can get. I think what you need in your life consistently is a very, very good friend. I think your spouse should be your best of friends. A good friend, who was it? Aristotle. Some philosopher says is somebody who wants the best for you without like feeling any kind of way, right? If I see you winning, I'm not like, damn, man, you're not envious. You're not like, damn, you're not, you know what I'm saying? You're just truly, truly happy for them. And that's what makes a good partner, and that's what makes a good friend. But also, a good friend is one who corrects you. The Bible says that the Lord chastises those he loves. The Lord corrects those he loves. So correction with love, right? So back to my whole point about, I think a lot of men have these thoughts of they can only be vulnerable to this level in an emotional relationship or in a romantic relationships. Where I do think that for some women friends, because they're already emotionally vulnerable with each other, it's harder for them to be emotionally vulnerable with men. I think, yeah, I think opposites attract. Duh, but I always think that there's an opposite reaction in every angle. if somebody's feeling this way, people normally feel things aligned, but it's different, like different ways. If the water is flowing like this, on one side of the water it is calm, right? But let me stop using analogies. Let me be direct. I think for most people, when it comes to relationships, back to the point of a lot of men have a hard time like being like vulnerable with their guys, but they'll be vulnerable with girls, right? I think girls are vulnerable with girls, but they're not necessarily vulnerable with themselves or guys. But this is all just my observation, my thoughts. It's not 100% true. The things I've noticed in friendships, but it's just a mix and trying to figure it out. And like as I'm 21 years old. I'm pretty sure y'all know that. My friends are dating for long-term relationships, right? This decade, these next 10 years are probably the relationships you get into are probably the people you're going to end up marrying. So because of that, they're like, okay, let's take this more seriously. This, that, what do you want? How do you see yourself? Would you move to this state if I moved there? This, that. They're asking questions. And because a lot of us in this next 1.5 years are going to be graduating or less, I would say 3 semesters or less. My friends would be out of college, so 1.5 years. Yeah, 1.5 years. Jobs, realities are forming. When you're from 1 through 16, for most people, you're completely dependent on your parents. For other people, you may not be, and it's a privilege to be completely dependent on your parents, right? But as you grow older, that independence becomes you forming your own things and what you want. Then another stage of life, in your 20s, 30s, 40s, whenever you do get married, it's forming that dependence with another person, right? Instead of you being dependent with your parents, you're dependent on another person. It's a different level of growth. And for some reason, there's something about a partner that brings out this different level of vulnerability for some people, for most people actually. But maybe I'm a little bit weird. I'll give you more context. I have deep conversations with a lot of people. So so sometimes conversations that are deep are not that deep, but they are extremely deep. But let's say on an average, as long as I leave my house, I'm gonna talk to a stranger for 30 minutes about something on their heart. That's just, I don't know. For some reason, people feel comfortable to talk to me about their stuff on their heart and whatnot. Super duper blessed. But I don't think most people have these interactions. So whenever they're able to finally pour out their hearts, then you start falling. Like it's from friends to lovers, right? You have a friend, you're just kicking it. Start pouring your heart. Eventually, that's Baski, right? That's the boo and them. Not a bad thing. I think relationships are transformative. Again, I keep wanting to repeat this. I'm just gonna read you a line that my friend texted me. I texted him this. Yeah, nobody has structure. It's like balance. You have to create it and you have to learn it. And he said, that's also what learning through having a partner is. That's what I'm experiencing right now. But whenever I have a friend who's like, when we talk about stuff, he's like, yeah, that's common sense. And lately, I've known this for a long time, but common sense is nowhere common. Anything you think is common just comes from your views and your shapes of reality. And I am extremely, extremely lucky that I've had all these people pour into me and I've got to see just different things. I think I am very rich in experience, monetarily becoming, but I'm very rich in experience. My friend was like, Mitch, in your 70s, you're going to have so many cool stories because of the life you live. I hope so. I hope in my 20s I have cool stories. And maybe that's why this journey to be a doctor is hard for me. This is losing the plot. Yeah, relationships are powerful. They open your heart. They show you a different part of yourself because you have. Why do they show you a different part of yourself though? Maybe it's because they show you it's okay to be you and they accept you for who you are in hopes. Because I think a lot of times, I think that's what I think we need self-actualization. Before we date anybody, you should be very secure in yourself. You should be able to, this is how I feel, express it, pour out, boom. But a lot of people learn, you're going to learn as you go through a relationship either way. But your first relationship, I heard this I heard this at the gym a couple weeks ago. It's like your first girlfriend might not be your wife, and I was like, damn. I like my first girlfriend though, but I mean, I'm like, I think there's always a place in my heart for her. That's besides the point. You have to learn, keep going, grow within oneself, and be comfortable. People, I heard this quote from. I watched this podcast a lot, maybe way more than I should, but he was saying that like your 20s, you buy a bunch of stuff because you think people care about you. 30s, you realize people don't really, maybe people don't really care. Your 40s or something like that, you realize they are paying attention to themselves and they never really like pay attention to you. And that's why people tell you just like live life, experience, ask questions, put yourself out there. People are so focused on their own lives that you have to be focused on yours too while caring about others. Because I think that's how to live. If you just stay in this bubble, you're never gonna get anywhere. But that's not true, because there's people who are monks who receive, who have understanding and all this knowledge of the world without ever leaving their rooms. I think, wow, there's a lot of side notes. I think there's a world inside of ourselves that helps you discover the world around you. I also think the world around you helps you discover the world inside yourself. It's always conversion, it's nuanced, and you'll figure it out as you go along. Hopefully, whoever watches this gets a concrete thought. And yeah,